Hey guys, tonight we dive into a story that starts with silence, but not the peaceful, meditative kind. This one stings. You're sitting at your kitchen table, refreshing your inbox like a desperate pigeon pecking for scraps. Everyone in the family group chat is buzzing about Aunt Cheryl's big family reunion, rooftop venue, catered barbecue, custom t-shirts that say, "The Johnsons, born to succeed." Cute, right? Except you didn't get the invite. It's not a mistake, they just didn't send one. Aunt Cheryl posts an update that reads, "Head counts final. Can't wait to see everyone red heart," and tags every family member. Except you, even second cousin Marvin's new fiancé. You know, the one who asked you if Brussels was a city or a type of lettuce is on the list. But you? Not even a courtesy emoji. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stare at the screen, feeling that low-grade ache you thought you'd grown out of, the kind of ache you get when someone chooses to unsee you. Technically, they didn't say you weren't invited, but you know what silence sounds like when it's aimed like a dart. It's funny, ancient Roman families held lavish banquets where even disgraced cousins were seated at the far end of the table, still technically in. But your family? They've upgraded to 21st century exile. Historians still argue whether digital exclusion hits harder than public shame in the Middle Ages. But one thing's clear. You're not welcome at the reunion this year. And the weirdest part? You don't even feel angry. Just cold. You remember the early reunions, the way every Johnson gathering felt like a low-stakes episode of Shark Tank. Aunt Cheryl, self-appointed MC, would open with a microphone and a mimosa. "Let's go around and say what we've all accomplished this year." Insert champagne clinks, uncomfortable laughter, and your dad mouthing, "Please don't say you're still freelancing." Cousin Dan would talk about his hedge fund internship like he personally ended the recession. Your sister, always the overachiever, once brought a portfolio of her architectural blueprints. Even Uncle Leon, who basically sells fish tanks out of his garage, managed to spin his side hustle into aquatic ecosystem consulting. And you? You brought potato salad, literal store-bought potato salad, in a dented cooler you borrowed from your neighbor. You'd try to joke your way through it. "Well, I haven't cured cancer, but I did teach my cat how to high-five." Half-hearted chuckles, followed by the patented Johnson pity smile. It's a look so practiced, it should be trademarked. The irony is that in medieval feasts, jesters were paid in silver for their cleverness. Now, if you try to be funny at a reunion, they just assume you're masking disappointment. Historians still argue whether humor in family dynamics disarms or isolates. But in your case, it always felt like camouflage. Back then, you thought you were the only one who noticed the quiet hierarchy, gold spoons at the top, paper plates at the bottom. But the older you got, the more you saw it for what it was, a scoreboard. And your name rarely lit up. So yeah, maybe missing this year's reunion stings less than usual, because deep down, you know what they're celebrating. And you also know it's not you. It all really started unraveling after college. You land what should be a game-changing internship. Should being the key word here. It's with this trendy startup run by a guy who wears beanies in July and says things like, "Let's disrupt the toothpaste industry." You're unpaid, overworked and undercaffeinated, spending most of your time rewriting PowerPoint slides for meetings that somehow never happen. Meanwhile, your cousin Amber gets flown out to New York to give a TEDx talk about sustainable nail salons. Aunt Cheryl shares the video on Facebook with the caption, "So proud of our little genius. Success runs in the family nail care sparkles." You're tempted to comment, "Guess it tripped over me," but you settle for a silent eye roll and a microwaved burrito. That internship falls apart faster than you can say, "Exposure doesn't pay rent." Turns out, the founder skipped town with investor money and left the team unpaid. You find out from Reddit. Classic. And when you mention it in the group chat, hoping maybe for a crumb of sympathy, Aunt Cheryl replies with, "Well, that's why we tell the kids to get real jobs." She adds a frowny face emoji, but the damage is done. In ancient Athens, failure in public service could lead to ostracism, a literal 10-year exile by vote. Historians still argue whether this was democratic justice or elite manipulation. But in your case, exile didn't come with a vote. It came with silence, and the way they started asking about you less and less. Funny, isn't it? You try to stretch towards something bigger, something of your own, and instead of applause, you get quietly erased. You keep scrolling through family photos of smiling faces, wine glasses, and matching polos, and you wonder if anyone ever talks about you when you're not in the room. You already know the answer. You double down after that. Not out of spite. Well, okay, maybe a little, but mostly out of necessity. You're not about to let your entire existence become a cautionary tale at the Thanksgiving table. So, you pivot. You pour every hour, every dollar, every shred of sleep into this quiet little idea you've been nursing for years. A platform for independent creators, writers, animators, coders, who, like you, have talent but no connections. You call it Forge. Because if the family won't let you inherit a legacy, you'll make one. You work out of your apartment. The air conditioning rattles like a dying robot. Your desk is just a door on top of 2 crates. Your coffee budget could feed a small zoo. But it's yours. You launched the beta version with a kind of hope only found in underdog sports movies and cheesy 2000s tech documentaries. And for a while, crickets. Like actual crickets. You hear them outside your window while you refresh your dashboard analytics and pretend not to be devastated. But then, it clicks. A YouTuber with a decent following uses Forge to fund her animated series. She posts about it. Her fans follow. Then another creator signs up. Then 5. Then 50. Suddenly, people are DMing you for onboarding help, and you don't even remember how long it's been since your last full meal. Historians still argue whether startup success is more about timing or grit, but for you, it feels like both. Like you were standing in the rain long enough for the clouds to finally move. And not a single family member knows. Not one, "Wow, proud of you." Not one text. It's like you built a ship and set sail, and they're still waving from the dock. Only they're not waving at you. Then comes the email. Subject line: Family Reunion. RSVP ASAP Sunflower. It's from Aunt Cheryl, naturally, and you already know what's inside before you even click. Same venue, same potluck rules, same curated joy. But there's something new this time, a not-so-subtle note near the bottom. We kindly ask that those who are still figuring things out sit this one out this year. Smaller gathering, you understand. You stare at it, reread it, then just sit there. The phrase "figuring things out" hangs in the air like it's wrapped in glitter and venom. You can almost hear her voice saying it, sympathetic with just a dash of condescension, like she's petting a dog that smells bad. You want to respond. Oh, do you want to? Maybe attach a screenshot of Forge's monthly revenue, which now reads like a phone number. Maybe a selfie of you with the local mayor, who just asked to partner on a digital arts grant. But you don't. Instead, you close the laptop, stand up, and order the biggest pizza you can find. You eat it straight out of the box while watching old reruns of Frasier, muttering snarky comments at the screen like you're co-hosting a sad improv show in your living room. Here's a fun historical tidbit. In 1816, the British aristocracy would host balls where invitations were based not on wealth, but reputation. And if yours was even slightly tarnished, you were left off the list. No explanations given. Historians still argue whether this was social preservation or petty exclusion. Either way, you get it now. So you let the reunion happen without you. You scroll past the photos, the group hug, the matching t-shirts, the caption that reads, "Another successful year for the Johnsons," sparkling heart, and not a single comment even asks, "Where are you?" The silence hits harder than any insult ever could. You channel that ache into overdrive. Forge expands. Fast. Too fast, honestly. You hire a team. You stumble through payroll setups and HR policies like you're blindfolded in a maze full of tripwires. Your calendar becomes a violent Jenga tower of back-to-back meetings, pitch calls, UX reviews, and stress-eating granola bars. But here's the thing. You love it. It burns, yes. But it burns clean. It's your fire, not theirs. Then, one day, you get an offer. A big one. From a private investor who's known for picking early unicorns. He once bought into an online SOX subscription service that now sponsors astronauts. You meet him in a conference room where the chairs cost more than your first car. He leans back, eyes twinkling. Forge, he says, has legs. You sign the deal. Just like that, the platform triples in value overnight. You're now officially, terrifyingly, the CEO of a company worth millions. To celebrate, your team surprises you with a cake. It's shaped like an anvil. Get it, Forge? You laugh, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. You snap a photo. You consider posting it with a vague caption, something like, "Not bad for someone who was uninvited." But again, you don't. Did you know that in medieval Europe, blacksmiths were among the most respected tradespeople? They crafted tools, armor, even the nails for royal coffins. Historians still argue whether their influence outweighed even that of knights. So yeah, you think, smiling at the cake, maybe being a modern-day smith isn't such a bad gig. And still, your phone stays silent. No calls, no emails. Not a single family member aware that their so-called failure just got their name etched into tech history. But that's okay. You're not building for them anymore. It's a rainy Tuesday when you get the invitation. Not an email this time, an actual envelope. Heavy cream cardstock. Probably picked out by Aunt Cheryl at one of those artisan paper boutiques that also sells rosemary-scented candles. You almost laugh. A year ago, they couldn't be bothered. Now, suddenly, you're cordially invited. Inside, we're thrilled to celebrate this year's Johnson family reunion at the Oak Ridge Event Hall, graciously donated by Forge Inc., founded by our very own, your full name. Wait, what? You reread it 3 times. Then you flip it over, half expecting a prank. But it's real. Your platform donated the venue, except you didn't. You call your assistant, well, more like your right hand, your work spouse, your "please schedule my life before I spiral into chaos" person. She sounds sheepish. Oh yeah, they reached out through our community outreach email. Said it was for a local arts education benefit. Technically true, I guess. Technically. Classic Cheryl move. Dress exclusion and politeness, then repackage your generosity as a gift from the family. It's so on-brand you could cry. Historically speaking, this tactic isn't new. Ancient Roman politicians were infamous for attaching their names to public fountains, libraries, and roads, even if the labor and funding came from someone else entirely. Historians still argue whether this was marketing genius or strategic theft. You don't say anything for a moment. You just stare at the invitation, watching a droplet of condensation from your iced coffee slide across the envelope like it's crying for you. Then, for the first time in a while, you smile. Not because you're flattered, not because you're included, but because now they'll have to walk into a building that bears your name. And maybe, just maybe, they'll start to understand who you've become. You don't, RSVP. Not yes, not no, just silence. Let them feel the same ghosting you endured. Let the anticipation marinate, but you do show up. Not in some dramatic slow-motion movie entrance, though that'd be fun. Cue wind machine, designer suit, and sunglasses at dusk. No, you arrive quietly. Early even. You take the long way around the building, just to read your name etched across the glass entry in chrome. Forge HQ, in honor of visionaries who build from ashes. The lobby is spotless. You nod to your own receptionist who does a double take before mouthing, "Wait, this is your family?" You wink. The guests begin trickling in. Uncles you haven't spoken to in years suddenly remember you used to love pancakes. Cousins you couldn't pick out of a lineup now gush about how proud they are. And then, like the moon pulling tides, comes Aunt Cheryl. Hair lacquered into hurricane-proof submission. Smiles so tight you're afraid her teeth might crack. She hugs you. She smells like anxiety and white wine. "We're so grateful, sweetheart," she whispers. "None of this would have been possible without your success." You murmur something non-committal and sip your coffee like it's laced with holy water. Did you know that in ancient China, elaborate family reunions were a matter of imperial record? Names were etched onto scrolls and monuments. Those excluded were sometimes literally forgotten by history. Historians still argue whether this practice preserved lineage or erased descent. You wander through the hall. Everyone keeps sneaking glances at the walls, every one of them dotted with forged logos, abstract art donated by your creative team, and a subtle dedication plaque mounted near the stage. And suddenly, you're not just someone who figured things out. You're the reason the doors opened at all. They try to rewrite history in real time. Cousin Mandy corners you by the drink station. "I always said you had that spark," she chirps, conveniently forgetting her teenage nickname for you was Careerless Carl. Uncle Greg launches into a story about how he lent you that book on entrepreneurship once, as if a dog-eared copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is responsible for your entire empire. Even Aunt Cheryl is doing damage control. During her speech, yes, of course she has a speech, she introduces you as our shining example of Johnson grit, which is hilarious considering she once said you were all dreams and no delivery. You sip your drink slowly. It's mango kombucha. Someone thought they were being fancy. It tastes like carbonated regret. Did you know that memory isn't static? Scientists have proven that every time you recall something, your brain rewrites it slightly, like editing a Word doc and hitting save. Historians still argue whether collective memory is shaped more by facts or by repetition. And boy, is your family repeating. You want to say something. Part of you itches to stand up and tell the truth. The whole ugly, glorious, slow-burn truth of how you were laughed at, left out, ignored until your name became unignorable. But you don't. Not yet. Because right now, you're letting them stew in the awkward magic of their own revisionism. You let their eyes trace the walls, their words stumble, their cheeks redden when they realize the napkins even have your company's emblem. You don't need to correct them. Your presence already did. But one moment's still coming. One more thing that'll really truly knock the wind out of their collective revisionist sails. And you're counting down to it. One sticky kombucha sip at a time. It happens during the group photo. You're herded to the front row. Of course. Not because you're the eldest or most loved, but because someone whispers, "It'll look good if you're centered." Translation: we want your clout, not your company. You kneel slightly, adjusting your blazer, and that's when the photographer, a young woman hired by your own events team, smiles and says loud enough for the room to hear, "Let's get a few extra shots of your name." You know, since this is technically their building, the silence drops like a phone in a toilet. Someone coughs. Aunt Cheryl's lips twitch. Uncle Greg looks confused, like he's trying to do emotional algebra in his head. And you just smile. Did you know that in the late 19th century, wealthy patrons would quietly fund entire museums or libraries, then have them named posthumously by others as an honor? Historians still argue whether these were sincere gestures or ego wrapped in philanthropy. You, on the other hand, didn't ask for your name on the building. Your team insisted, because the name Forge wasn't about steel. It was about you, your story, your relentless chisel on the granite of expectation, your ability to make fire from wet matches and build something worth walking into. As the flash goes off, your eyes scan the room. They're not looking at you with pity anymore. They're looking at you like you're an artifact that suddenly makes sense, one they'd misfiled for decades. The photo clicks. Another flash. In that moment, your past, present, and future stand still. And then, a breath. A blink. The world exhales. You sit back. And just like that, you begin to forgive them. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. ... The lights in the event hall are dimming. The music is softer now, just a low instrumental hum like the end credits of a film you weren't sure you wanted to see, but watched anyway. Your thoughts slow, unspooling like a ribbon curling at the edges. You made it through, not just the reunion, but the whole messy climb it took to get there. From jobless dinners to whispered mockery, from cold shoulders to name-in-lights acknowledgement. There's something profoundly calming about that arc finally resting in place. You don't need to change their memories anymore. You've built your own museum. So now, as the night winds down and the stars settle over the parking lot outside, you let your breath match the rhythm of the music. Long, low, lazy. The kind of breath that belongs to someone who finally knows their worth. Let their whispers fade. Let the silence hold you like velvet. You did it, friend. Time to sleep.